Hey guys, and welcome to our third episode with Weronika. I think I will give the floor to Weronika. She will introduce herself, say a few words about her company and what is her background.
So, hello, thank you for having me. And to put it shortly, I'm an HR business partner currently working at Foodsi, which is a Polish food saving app founded in 2019. And yes, maybe we'll talk about it a little bit more later, but my background is not actually in HR, it's actually more in operations. However, currently and for I think 2 or 3 years now, I've been working in human resources or people department, however you want to call it. And yeah, I'm happy to talk about doing HR in startups.
Okay, thank you very much for the answer. Could you briefly tell about how you end up in the Foodsi? What was your career progression?
Okay, so my career started around 5 years ago. It was right before I started studies, and I worked first as a journalist. And I was completely sure that this is what I want to do. However, reality turned out to be different, and I realized that I need something more. And although working in journalism was great, I decided to move on to business. And then I worked at Vinted, which is a pretty well-known company.
Yeah, I think everybody knows Vinted.
So that was my first time working in a startup slash scale up, because at the moment it was already scaling to different markets. And I came to work in community experience department. And I really quickly developed a skill to train other people, but also to do translations and some other things related to content. And at the time, I still didn't know what to do. I was promoted to community project specialist while I was doing content training. Also, I was helping with vendor management because we were outsourcing, so onboarding, training new employees, all of that stuff.
So it was already going in the HR area a little.
A little bit, yes. Okay. But at the time, I was sure that I still want to stick more to the content side. I was also studying American studies at the time, and I learned to be a pretty good writer, which allowed me to move on in my career into working as digital PR writer, which was pretty close to PR, marketing, SEO, but at the same time, it was pretty close to HR because I was working at Bold. Part of Bold is SETI, My Perfect Resume, which I worked for. These are the US platforms, but there's also Interview Me, which is a pretty well-known Polish platform, I would say. And again, it was a little bit related to HR career. So I gained a lot of knowledge because I was doing the research and I was writing data-driven articles. And I was also ghostwriting as an HR expert for different people. So I gained a lot of knowledge. But still, at this point, I'm not working at HR. And then I think the biggest change in my career, and I think the most important highlight, was moving to work as an operations manager at Membi. So Membi is an edtech startup, and I started working as an operations manager, and I did literally everything from market research to all things marketing, a little bit of sales, vendor and teacher management, customer support, of course. And I also had a chance to work a little bit in HR department. And as I really enjoyed it, I had an opportunity to become a first HR person within the company. And it all started from here.
What was the feeling to be the first HR person in the company for you?
It was easy. I know it sounds weird, but Amandas and Silvestris, the co-founders, they did a really, really great job at creating the culture and making us feel like one big team. Actually, the team was, at the peak, it was 20 something. I don't remember necessarily, but I think 24, 26 people. It was like the peak at the moment. excluding the teachers, because there's, of course, like in edtech, you also have teachers, which are like, I think, over 100 when it comes to Membi. But they did really a good job. We actually had a 4-day working week, fully remote culture, but we also were meeting twice a year. And yes, they have taught me a lot about operations, but also they have taught me a lot about like HR in itself. However, at some point they realized, okay, this is all we can offer you. Now it's time to find a mentor. And I found a mentor myself, which the company paid for. And yeah, that was a start. Then, as it happens in some startups, we had some layoffs, and only the core team stayed in the company.
So how many people stayed around? And
I think around 10. So from 20 something to 10. So pretty much a big change. So only the core team, like, one person for the product, one UX, like the product developer, one product designer, and graphic designer, country managers, like only the necessities. And then at the same time, I was headhunted by coding giants. And again, I was working as HR and operations manager. So I was doing a little bit of operations, like, for example, the market research. I was helping with that, and some operational and process management. But a big part of my work was to be, again, maybe not the first time, not the first HR person within the company, because they were recruiters before, but first person that was establishing processes, first person to do more of international recruitments. And there was another experience that I had. And now I work at Foodsi. There were some like other projects in between the career, but definitely a shift from operations manager to people operations manager was the time that my career shifted, and I realized what I want to do.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, and right now you are currently working in Foodsi, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and you are working as HR business partner, and I know that, for example, at Koźmiński we have this course called HR business partner, but actually I have no idea what people are doing there, so maybe this is the perfect time for you to elaborate on it a little.
Okay, so in short, HR business partner aligns HR strategies with business objectives. And that sounds pretty simple in it. However, of course, there are different things coming into it. So there's operation management, emergency responding, let's say, being a strategic partner, and employee mediator. But of course, all of these still sounds a little bit vague. So to put it more into what I am doing, basically, I am the main HR professional at Foodsi, which means that although HR business partner in itself should be more of a strategical and advisory role, I tend to work more with hands-on approach, which means I work with managers. I help them with the strategy. I try to align what we're doing in HR to help them achieve goals and to help align what we're doing with the business strategy. But at the same time, I am the one that also needs to execute it.
Okay.
To put some examples onto it, let's say we are collecting a round. As any other startup. An HR business partner would be a person that would help when creating models of a company, like org charts, but for the future. So let's say we currently have 30 people, and after acquiring the round, we will need to have 80 people. I am the person that needs to help allocate the resources. So I need to think like, what would be the core teams? How much can we put into certain department? Do we need to maybe divide certain departments? How much money also can we put into it? Because HR business partner also takes care of how much money employees are getting.
Like payroll analyst, something
Yeah.
Like
Analytics, and also the strategy is one part of the of the job, but then also being the person that actually executes it is another part of it.
And which area is the most focus put on? So, like for example, which area takes 60% of your job, which area 20, and which one 10?
It depends. It depends on the project. It depends on business objectives. So, for example, in the case of Foodsi, we really wanted to put an emphasis on performance management. We really wanted to make sure that our employees stay with us as long as possible and they excel in their roles. So for that reason, we needed to create some framework. So we began with creating a competency matrix. So we needed to find key competencies for the whole organization, then for certain teams. And then that allowed us to excel these traits, excel these competencies within certain departments, help people achieve not 80% of their targets, of their current abilities, but 120%, let's say. And for them, it's still fascinating. It's still helping them to grow because they have clear goals set. They have performance reviews regularly, and they have certain framework for that performance review. So it is a tool that allows business leaders to set the goals clearly. And this is a tool that helps them to see their employees and help them excel in their role. So clearly we see this person, let's say, struggles with certain tool. We need to help them with that tool. And then we see that after that, this person started to work on that certain tool because they had a clear goal because of the framework. And later we see that the goals have been excelled. And basically, that, for example, has been something I was working recently at, but it can also be like, let's say, onboarding process or talent acquisition, recruitment process. It can be basically anything from policies to processes to employee relations.
Okay. I think that you touched upon like the tools that, for example, people in the company are using, and I'm interested what tools you are using.
Okay, so we are at the startup. I'm going to start with that. And of course, there are numerous tools, and a lot of HR professionals from big companies would be probably like, what do you mean you don't have certain tool? But I have some tools that I like to use. So for example, when I come into a company and I see that there's no ATS system. ATS is an applicant tracking system. So basically, for those who don't know, like CRM for recruiters. And if I don't see ATS, I'm like, wow, like how have you been doing without that? So first thing I put into practice, it's ATS. And that's basically for all things recruitment. Sometimes it also helps with onboarding. It also helps you to put the career side by yourself. So, sometimes you have limited resources, the devs can't do it. Or for example, Foodsi is an app. Our developers, they work in Flutter and Ruby on Rails. So they won't really help me with creating a site, Maybe our UX designer would, but he wasn't there at the time. So ATS is the first tool. There's also HRIS or HRMS system, which is HR management system. So like a general system that allows you to collect data, sometimes process payroll as well, and do other things within one tool.
Like managing vacations also. Paid leaves, kind of that things also.
That's also a leave management system. I'm going to get to it in a second, but usually HRIS system also has it. We do not have HRIS system yet. We have a lot of our processes done in Notion as well as Google Sheets. So that's what we're using. So some manual work for me, but I personally love Google Sheets, so that's not a problem. But we also have leave management system that you touched upon. So basically a tool that allows us to track remote days, time offs. We also have like birthday time offs, some like investment days. So basically like days that our employees can use to, educate themselves. So there's that, but there's numerous tools also for people and culture, learning and development, payroll, and all HR operations things. There are numerous tools, but to me personally, good old Google Sheets, Notion, or some other tool similar to that, Slack for communication, and ATS system. If I would have to name just one tool that I can't live without, it would be an ATS and leave management system, because I feel like without those two, it's pretty hard to manage it all.
Okay, and since I was also working a little bit in the HR area, could you tell me if you are using any tool that helps to recruit candidates and measure their skills, for example?
I remember we talked about it. No, we actually do not. At the moment, I am hoping that after acquiring a round, which will hopefully happen soon, we will look into something. I already have some things in place. I'm not going to name them, but there are some tools that I would like to use, but definitely I would like a tool that would allow me not only to hire better, but also that I could use within the company to help
Measure the current skills level?
Yes, manage the current talent that we have. So basically, there are tools like that, and I think that it is very important, because I believe that actually acquiring talents is not that difficult as it used to be. We're shifting again a little bit towards employer market, so it's easier to hire. And also, Foodsi is a love brand. So recruitment for a love brand is also much easier. We have much more candidates, and a lot of candidates want to work with us just because they want to support the brand. It's easier. However, there's this part about working in startups that our salaries may not be as competitive because we're not a big corporation, or we may not have as many benefits as big corporations. And we, of course, we're trying to make it good for the market. We try to be competitive with that. But we also need to think of other strategies that will help us attract, but also keep the best talent possible. And for that reason, I think that this tool would not only focus on hiring, but also on keeping and managing and developing our current talent.
Okay, thank you very much for that input. And now let's talk about what are the challenges of HR business partner in your opinion? Maybe they are not, but maybe they are just a little, I don't know.
Of course, there are. Like in any position. And for me, I think the major challenge that I face when I entered the company is building credibility and influence. So, looking like me, so being a pretty, I would say, young professional, and also a female, because it's still, there is some stigma in business environment. I need to come and I need to work and advise senior management. So I need to establish myself as a trusted advisor to senior management, and I need to gain some influence to help with strategic decision making. And it can take time and effort, and sometimes it's not as successful as I would like it to be, because sometimes you need actually some time to gain someone's trust. Or sometimes I try to come as very confident, and some people would like a little bit less direct and more delicate approach. So this is the main challenge that I always face first when I come into an organization. I usually already have the trust of, let's say, founders, or at least someone who hired me, which is usually the founders. But definitely that's something that is a big challenge for me personally. But in general, when it comes to working as an HR business partner, definitely balancing the strategic and operational tasks. So especially working in a startup, you have the strategical part, which is crucial for HR business partner role, but you also need to execute it. So sometimes I would like to work more on some models, strategical plans, and all of these things, but I need to just basically get roll up my sleeves and do some calls, because we do not have an in-house recruiter, and I need to be a person that needs to make the calls. or I need to go and mediate in employee conflict because like there's no one else that can do it for me. So there are certain things that I need to prioritize, which I think may be a challenge, especially for someone who's just starting. And I think that's in general, maybe it's not a challenge, but a very important objective for a role is aligning the HR and business goals. So on one hand, I am still an HR professional, but I need to have some business background and I need to know how to make both sides happy. So on one hand, I need to make the decisions that are good for the business, but on the other hand, I'm still a people person. I still need to be, let's say, the voice of employees in many cases. So I think these are the top three challenges for me. But of course, as in any other role, there are many.
Okay, thanks about that. We talk about now a little bit about challenges, and now maybe I would like to ask you who you think is the perfect candidate for like HR business partner. Probably there are many young people among our audience, and if you would like to give them advice, who is like the perfect candidate, what are their skills, what should be their experience to match these criteria?
Okay, great question. For me personally, I think that it would be a good blend of strategical slash analytical thinking combined with people first mindset and a great communication skills. So a lot of young professionals that go into an HR role, they are very good when it comes to communication, empathy, or let's say all of the soft skills, and that's a great base to start when it comes to HR. And if you want to excel in more of, let's say, learning and development role or more culture, diversity role, I would say that's a great base. However, if you want to work as an HR business partner, the strategical part is crucial to succeed. And also having some business background, operational, or maybe in certain departments is great to begin with as well. Especially in bigger companies, HR business partners tend to be divided into certain departments. So for example, there's HR business partner for sales or HR business partner for senior management. So if you're an HR business partner for sales, it's good if you have some previous experience when it comes to sales. If you're in a small organization and you're an HR business partner or HR manager, it's good if you have some overall knowledge around the business. So this business acumen, I think you can do without it, but still you need to learn by yourself then, because it is very important, firstly, to gain trust of the stakeholders, and secondly, to actually succeed in the role. But yeah, other than that, I think analytical skills, interpersonal skills, maybe some change management experience, I think all of these would help.
Okay. And why do you think somebody should consider working in HR? So I wanted to talk about why you chose this path. Maybe like why do you like it? What motivates you to grow? And if you could recommend, for example, your friend why they should also start there, what would be your advice?
That's a good question. For me personally, this role is very satisfying because, on one hand, I'm very close to the business and decision making, but also I can impact people's lives. So, for me personally, I always knew that I have skills when it comes to working with people, but I never knew how to actually use it in business other than translation, communication, some things like that. But then I also had this very strong analytical side of me. I loved working in Excel. I loved making data more nice to see, so
like
to
visualize
say.
data with some
Yeah,
graph charts,
I
so
love.
like people can quickly scan and get some nice insights.
Yes, I love visualizing data. I love creating some models, strategies. And also I like doing research. And as an HR business partner, you need to, or any HR professional, basically, you need to do some research. For example, if you try to come with some salary scale for the company, you need to collect the data, and only then you can create some, salary scale.
But how you are getting this data? You are just googling and, for example, doing some benchmark from some companies that are producing some, I don't know, Europe worldwide reports, and then you are just trying to get the average, or you are, for example, I don't know, googling 10 of your competitors or close competitors and try and get the data, what amount they are paying the people on this, for example, position, and then you are trying to adjust to them.
I don't think there's one good way to do it. I do it different ways. So first of all, reports are great. Of course, they are a good base to benchmark the salaries. However, they tend to be a little bit higher than usually. I mean, not in all industries. For example, in IT, they can be pretty okay, but in certain roles, they can be a little bit higher because they are based on bigger companies. And when it comes to startup ecosystem, we all know that sometimes the pays are not that great because of the other benefits, of course. So we also need to look at other companies that are in a similar level, or companies that used to be at a certain level. Of course, we need to keep in mind the inflation, etc. So I try to stay up to date with what is currently on the market from different sources, including reports, including job boards, including our competitors, as well as what is happening within our company. Because, of course, the stage that we're at means a lot. Because sometimes people come to me at our performance reviews, because at Foodsi, HR also takes part in yearly annual performance reviews. So people come to me and they're like, okay, but I see that in this and this company, for this role, they pay more. And I'm like, yes, but this is only what is in the job description. That's first thing. And the other thing is that this company, for example, is a scale-up that has just acquired Series F. And Foodsi is still a pretty young startup. We are before collecting our Series A. So yeah, this business acumen helps a lot when it comes to creating some pay scales.
Okay, thank you very much. Now let's focus in general about HR, because I'm not that familiar with it, and I have a lot of interesting questions to you. I think also they will be interesting for the audience. So first, I know that in general, since I'm involved a little bit in the startup ecosystem, I was working in one, I was going to some job interviews, and I know the cases when, for example, there is like, I don't know, 50 person organization, and there is not even single one person devoted strictly to HR. And in my opinion, in startup world, but I also think in general, people don't pay that much value and attention to the HR people. They sometimes treat it like as a additional payment actually for the company, not as a benefit. So maybe you could tell a little bit about the situation.
Yeah, sure. This is actually how our conversation started, right?
Yeah, exactly. I remember.
Because I actually love this question. So HR is still perceived as administrative, and as handling administrative tasks such as payroll, benefit administration, compliance, rather than a strategic partner. So this lack of understanding of what currently HR can do for a company, I think, and this focus on immediate returns is actually what I think leads for people to think that maybe HR is not necessary.
Yeah, because with sales it's easy, right? Like there is your target, like you're bringing X amount of client per month. Here is clear, like what's your revenue for the company. But with these people, it's a little bit intangible, and it's hard to calculate what is your value, how much you are bringing to the company.
Exactly. And if we actually think about how much money can we lose from hiring the wrong employee, we actually realize that, hey, maybe we need to rethink our strategy. And often it's just that the founders at early stage startups, even up to 50 people, or I know the case of a Polish startup that didn't have a dedicated HR person up until 100 people. But sometimes it's okay if the founders can do well at it. And that's perfectly okay. And sometimes sometimes it works. It depends on the company. However, then founders need to actually put some time into doing certain functions that could be delegated for HR. So, but I'm going to circle back to the topic of hiring the bad employee. So we just think, okay, we're going to find a person. If it's not going to be good, then, well, we're going to find another one in a few months. But we need to take into consideration the fact that the hiring costs are not only the job board, and it is not only the time of a recruiter. It's also the time of an onboarding person. It is also the time that this person doesn't produce the results for the company, while we could in place have already a person that produces or even exceeds expectations. So there are a lot of things that come into practice, that comes into account when it comes to hiring a bad employee, and that's just one thing that we need to put in place. Or, for example, losing a very valuable employee. So if you have a dedicated HR professional, you can see that they can not maybe predict, but yeah, predict in a way. They can predict, or maybe more like measure, who we need to look at, who we are at risk of losing at the moment. And having that knowledge helps us a lot. And I, from my professional experience, know the companies that after losing some key employees had faced a lot of struggle. So keeping that in mind, and understanding that this contribution that HR is making may seem intangible at first, but it actually can be very tangible if you actually deep dive into it and you look into long-term results. So, yeah.
Okay, and I wanted to ask you about, let's say that I'm a founder, I'm starting some company, which employee in the queue, which number of the employees should be like first HR person completely devoted to the HR stuff?
I think around 20. It all depends on the company. There are companies that will need an HR person when they have like 10 employees, or it can be 50. But if I would have to say certain number, the first time that founders need to think like, well, it's actually the time that I stop taking care of hiring and I need someone to help me with some HR stuff. It's around 20. But the funny thing is that between 20 and 100 employees, you usually need around 2.5 HR professionals, which is like, if you look at 2 and if you look at 20 and 100, that's a big difference, right?
Yeah.
But actually, once you have established certain processes and automate them, then you don't need to scale that much up until like this 100 or 200. But yeah, I think for sustainable growth, around 20 people, I would start thinking that, oh, maybe it's the time I delegate. But the right answer is when the founders or the founder have a feeling that, yeah, it's time to give certain responsibilities away. Unless they have like a chief of staff or operations manager or anyone else who could do that.
So in operations, but kind of HR, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. And how to settle a good recruitment process? I know that probably you could talk and we could talk about it for an hour, but if you could just tell briefly, like in a nutshell, what for you means like a good recruitment process and how to actually do it.
Okay, so again, there's not one right or wrong thing that I'm going to do.
That's why I'm asking, in your opinion, what do you think?
So first of all, every time I come to an organization, I try to take a look at what they already have, because it tells me a lot about the culture, about the current processes, and about the needs. And each process needs to be adjusted to organizational needs. Sometimes when I join a company and they had, let's say, some HR consulting agency or some other consultant, like external one, they tend to go just with one good way of doing something. And I do not believe it's the case. I believe that there is a baseline. Like, as I said, having an ATS is a baseline for me. But I think that it always has to be adjusted. So, you know, let's say sometimes we would use hiring tools that we talked about before, and your previous company, Heroify, right, is one of such tools. And sometimes when it comes to Foodsi, for example, we have something we call internally vibe check, which is basically a meeting that allows us to get to know the person, like who they actually are, let's say, outside of work. And it's because actually the whole culture at Foodsi is very we're like basically a friend group, not like a family. I really don't like this when companies are doing that. But we're like a friend group, and we actually tend to spend a lot of time outside work. It's basically what we do, and it's not like someone that's, I don't know, don't like to do it wouldn't match the vibe, but they may feel that maybe it's not a company for me. So for us, it works.
And how you're accessing this vibe check then? It's like some, I don't know, late dinner with you or somebody from the team, or like, I know you're going to like some cafe and chit chat, or like you say, for example, what is your favorite hobby and this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's actually more like the last one because it's actually in our office. We would like to know how someone would interact in our office. So what I do is I often take that person and I go to their, possible future team to say hi. And I would like to see how they interact with the team. That's what I do. And I ask some questions, for example, about development. Because when you hire junior employees, they do not know what to do, and we have a lot of junior positions open, mostly for the sales team.
If somebody wants there,
Yeah, come and join.
Foodsi, just they can for sure approach you on LinkedIn, right?
Yes.
We will link the after the video in the description your LinkedIn, so you can reach out to Veronika.
Yes, if you love food so much that you want to save it, come and join us. But yeah, so I would like to know how they interact with the team, but also I want to know what direction do they want to grow towards. So for example, if we're hiring someone for sales, let's say, because we have a junior sales position open, and someone will be like briefly mentioning that, oh, I'm actually interested in HR, or let's say in marketing, I may have like this, red light bulb in my head, like saying, okay, this person may want to change teams in near future, and I can predict that, for example, okay, let's say in next 6 months we probably won't have any junior positions open. So I need to dig deeper a little bit and see how sure this person is about changing the field. Because if they, for example, study marketing, they do some voluntary work on social media, let's say, but they want to join us for, let's say, sales department. But I see it's just because they want to support the company, but they may not be happy in a role. That's also something that we try to get into, like in a vibe check.
Yeah, but I also think that with the juniors, maybe it's like first real work or second.
Yeah.
Like it's hard actually to say if they really want this because it's their first job, so maybe they don't even know that sales is for them. So like it's risky, but I could also understand that like I'm joining the company, I'm working in sales, and I really really love it, and I want to develop. But I'm also saying that like since I'm still young, exploring different paths. So maybe after half a year, I'm saying to, hey guys, like I think it's not for me. I would like to go to another department, but like if there are no places, unfortunately, I will.
Yeah, it's like definitely it's not like a deal breaker. Never. It's just like for example, some information that we try to get from the vibe check, or we also our culture partner Laura. She also takes part in it, and she actually asks a lot of like very soft questions. So, for example, what do you like to do after work? And that may seem like such yeah, like
perfect match. You have it.
Literally, sometimes people would say something like, literally, like, I don't know, I just love to work. And actually, we have this like, let's say, culture of keeping like giving like 120% of yourself when you're at work, and being an advocate for Foodsi outside of work. But when you're outside of work, although we're proud of it, although we would recommend Foodsi to a friend 100%, we value our time off a lot. Like, we know that if you would work too hard all the time, you need to rest after that. And if we have a person that is very like, driven, and they don't have like this way of, let's say, recharging batteries after work, it's actually also maybe a red flag. Or sometimes we would see at the vibe check that the person is already, let's say, burnt out from previous job, and they're not looking for new adventures, for more dynamic environment. They're looking for just a place to settle in. And startup is definitely not a place to settle in.
Okay. Maybe now you could tell me, for example, let's a little bit reverse. Let's say that I'm the founder and I want to hire my first employee. For example, I'm the business founder. I have my friend who is technical co-founder. We are building some product and we need to, I don't know, hire first person for some more like, let's say, operations role to help us with everyday tasks. What are the questions, or like, I don't know, maybe you have some tips and tricks how to actually hire this person to avoid some bad stuff, because I don't have any experience in hiring, and I think hiring first person to the team actually it's a huge promise, so it will be done good. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, it actually gets us back to what we said before, that actually hiring a bad employee can cost us a lot. And when it comes to like first employee, or even first 10 or 20 employees, it can cost really a lot, because it can be make or break for the company. So that's a very good question. And of course it depends on the role, because sometimes, let's say, the technical co-founder takes care of all the things, let's say product and all the things technical. Then we have like the business founder that, let's say, have more experience in sales and working with people, customers. So let's say the first person would be, I don't know, marketing specialist, or maybe we need someone that would actually help us with general business matters. So maybe an operations manager. It can be anything. So first of all, we need to really think what we need. We need to maybe make a list of the skills that we have, because sometimes if we like visualize what we actually have, what resources do we have, we actually realize that, okay, maybe all the other companies are hiring operations manager first, but actually looking into it, I can do all the operational matters, but I am terrible at marketing. So maybe I'm gonna keep on focusing on all the operational matters, but we need a strong marketing at this point, so we need to hire a marketing professional. Let's say it all depends. But to answer your question, again, there's no one right or wrong answer. But
as always,
the question I like to ask when it comes to early stage startups is actually asking about conflict, about experience with conflict with a boss or other employee. And you seem interested. Yeah, it's a weird question. However, if you're hiring a first person to join your company, you need someone that would be open to a discussion. And if someone is afraid of conflict, if someone is not open to conflict, it actually means that this person may be more of a passive employee, a person that would be great at doing certain tasks. However, at a very early stage, we need someone that would be challenging us. There are only two of us founders, and we've been doing some work by ourselves, but there might have been no one to actually challenge us. So I feel like having someone that would be able to challenge us, even though we are the founders, would be a key skill for a first person. I know this may not be everyone's opinion. However, I truly believe that this is it may be the reason why some startups fail, because founders tend to have certain idea in their head and they follow it, but there's no one challenging the idea, and there's no one telling them that hey, I actually don't think this is the right path, maybe we should reconsider. So yeah, actually that would be a question I would ask. If I would be a founder, I would want the first employee, no matter what they specialize in, I want them to challenge me.
Okay, nice. Now I wanted to talk a little bit about like crafting your job interview, maybe some ways to recruit yourself for some positions. Let's say that like I'm a junior, I want to apply for some early age startup. What do you think would be the best way to get a job as I don't know founders or associate, some junior sales person? Should I don't know, focus on like really crafting my CV, or should I focus more like doing some refreshing my LinkedIn, or just approaching and cold messaging, for example, founders to show them that I have a big motivation and to just say what value should I bring? Like, what would be your way to optimize it to increase my chance of like being seen from the team and saying, oh, this guy, maybe he doesn't even have like the skills we are really needing, but we are seeing that like he has the motivation and he will do a good job in our company.
Okay, so I'm gonna, again, it depends on a company, and this time it depends on the company size. So if you have a very early startup, it may be a chance that they are not looking for someone new just yet, but you still can build a connection and be sure that maybe they will reach out to you when they will be looking for someone in the future. So in this case, networking, if we're thinking about very early startups. Then when it comes to startups that already are a little bit established, they have already maybe, let's say, first few employees, then sometimes they already have their career page in place, but again, getting in touch with them, letting them know that you exist, that you would like to cooperate with them, is also a good case. When it comes to bigger companies, no, then I would say the strategies may vary. And actually, pretty recently, a friend of mine reached out to me because he would like to move towards working in Web3. And he was like, okay, should I maybe talk to recruiters? Should I approach them on LinkedIn? And I'm like, but is the position open? And he's like, no. So I like, okay, so crypto startup, but let's say 50 people around, and you'd like to approach the recruiter. But recruiter at this point is not a decision maker. You can approach them. They can add you to potential candidates list, but right at this moment, they can't do anything. It's better to find the actual hiring manager, which means the manager of a team. So let's say you would like to work in product department, you look for product lead, or in marketing, you look for head of marketing, and you reach out specifically to them. Because if you reach out to the recruiter, they may be like, hey, I'm gonna forward your resume to someone, and maybe that someone will see. But you don't have a relationship built with the actual decision maker. So let's keep the recruiter. Let's talk directly with a decision maker. And even though the process may not be open just yet, you may just talk with them, tell them about something that you noticed on, let's say, their page or social media or whatever.
Show some value up front, right?
Yep. You're gonna show some value up front, just like you said. And then maybe this person would be like, we haven't considered that before, but maybe we should consider talking with that person, and maybe they can actually bring value to what we have. So if we're looking for a specific position, then there's, if maybe not specific, if we're looking for working with a specific company, that's our strategy. And if we're looking for a specific job vacancy that's open, then first tip that I give is always do your research, because you have no idea how many people come unprepared to job interviews. Actually, one of my favorite cases in my current company is when someone sent us a cover letter, and the fact that they misspelled the company name, this is common. But we actually have one major competitor on the market, and they actually written a resume for our main competitor, which
maybe they applied there and they thought, oh, maybe I apply also there, but I'm not even changing the name. They will not.
Yeah, they did that, and right after that, they have changed the cover letter. But I have all the logs from the ATS, so I saw that, and I was like, oh, that's a bummer. So yeah, people do that sometimes. Also, what I would do is to really practice, like think about the possible questions, or think about the questions that can be related to this specific company, because if you practice it, it will help you a lot if the actual thing is happening, which I'm giving the worst example at the moment, because I haven't practiced at all before our talk today. However, if it's an actual
but it's
job
not
interview,
a job interview, just
exactly,
casual interview conversation.
Yeah. One of the tips that may also not be that obvious for some people is, please do not badmouth your ex-employer. Like, no, this is like a big red flag. And people do that various ways. However, I would advise to not to talk too much about it before you get a job. If you get a job, you can talk all the bad things, all the bad, the ugly, the everything. However, on a job interview, you better not do it, because it shows your approach towards work, and it may be seen pretty negatively. So yeah, and maybe two more things that I would say. First of all, build a story. And what I mean by that, I really don't like the question, tell me about yourself. I really don't like that question. I know that some recruiters love it. I do not like that question. Or maybe tell me about your past experience. Because I have seen your resume. I know all about that. I would like you to tell me something that is not on your resume. I would like you to tell me something more. However, if you actually get that question, it's nice to have some story built around it. So something that will actually catch recruiters' attention. Something that would be like, oh, this person actually is passionate about work, or this person actually had a really nice career progression. Whatever that is, don't just go through your resume in your own words, because I've already seen it. And I think the last thing, sending a note or thank you email afterwards. This is a very small thing. However, again, it catches my attention. If I talk with someone and then this person sends me an email saying like, hey, thanks so much for such a nice chat. It was really great, really lovely to meet you. I'm like, oh, that's really sweet of you. Thank you. Or even like, maybe I shouldn't say that, but if someone says a little compliment, a little something nice at the end of the conversation,
ego boosting.
Yeah, it's always gonna give you those extra points. Some recruiters are like, okay, I know people do that, blah blah blah. However, hiring managers, sometimes they like it too.
I don't know if I meant by myself, but for sure I've heard this tip that, for example, even if you are, for example, I know you didn't go to the next interview process or something, the next step, for example, to ask this HR person why, in their opinion, like what you were lacking of. So, for example, I'm writing, hey, thank you very much for the process. It's a shame I didn't go to the next step, but if you could tell me what was exactly that like I was missing that you didn't choose me, because based on this feedback you, for example, know like, for example, what you can improve when you are recruiting for the next company, or which skills you are lacking.
Yeah, sometimes actually we cannot say specifically, because certain reason is like maybe too sensitive, or I don't want someone to feel bad. So I'm gonna be honest with that. Sometimes we cannot say the exact reason, or we need to sugarcoat it in a way, because I don't want my feedback to be downgrading. I want this feedback to be actionable for the person. So I always ask my hiring managers to be like, no sugar coding. Just write down or tell me what exactly was the thing why you don't want to hire the person. And then I am trying to make it a little bit more tangible and a little bit more useful for the candidate. But it is actually a very good way of building a connection. And I think that it should work both ways. So from my side, every time we reject a candidate, even though it may be someone that seems that will never be a good fit, I still want to build a relationship with that person, because one day this may be exactly the person that we may need. So we
have some base of like all the candidates accepted, rejected, on hold, like just in case something like that would happen, you can already reach out to them, right?
And I always our reject message says that we would like to keep the resumes for the future recruitment, and also the whole recruitment process itself also also we take care of the candidate experience. And actually, we have a great case because recently someone applied for a junior position. It was a person that actually went through most stages of our process, but in the meantime decided to accept some other job offer. However, it was this person's spouse, I think, and it was like, actually, like my boyfriend or my girlfriend was in your process. They said it was great, so I wanted to apply too. And that's a really nice thing to hear, that people actually value our experience, our recruitment experience so much that they would recommend it to a friend. And it goes both ways. So you also want to, for the company, for the recruiter to have a great experience with you, because it may be not this company, but you will also be in this recruiter's or HR professional's head. And maybe in the future, they will keep you in mind for a certain position, for a certain vacancy. So it's always good to, keep the connection. Just, I would say, usual business networking, but don't forget it when it comes to recruitment as well.
Yeah, I'm seeing that like whole HR game getting a job, actually it's a skill that you could learn, I think, with progress. If I'm seeing myself like 2-3 years ago recruiting for the first job, and right now I'm seeing how much I improved and how much easier it is for me right now to find some job opportunities and at least go through the first stage, like by just sending CV and doing some small video, something like sending a personal video even.
It can be little things, but if you catch recruiter's attention, and by recruiter I mean anyone, because it can be founder doing the recruiter's job or some manager or head doing the recruiter's job. We actually sometimes use, let's say, our managers to also help with the recruitment process, because having one HR professional and one culture professional, we may not be always able to do everything by ourselves. So we need some help sometimes. But our process is done the way that they can actually help us. But, catching someone's attention is key. And then once you made a good first impression, take it from here, use it to your advantage. And yeah.
Okay. Salary ranges on the LinkedIn job offer. Cool or not cool?
Of course, it's a must. I really think that we need to be transparent when it comes to our salaries. Actually, our pay scale at Foodsi is semi-transparent for the teams. So person can see on which professional level, because of course we have levels such as junior, mid, senior, but we also have sub-levels. So for example, junior 0.0, 0.1, 0.2. It's just to for people to be able to also
actually, to better predict, be fair to them, maybe not right now, maybe not, maybe in half a year.
Yeah, we also want them to know that even we are aware that people progress in their careers, even though there still can be a junior, they made certain progress. So that's why we also have some sub-levels. And for each of these sub-levels, we have different salary ranges. And during performance review, we can actually show them to a given person. So it's not like anyone can see them at any time, but I really truly believe that companies should be more transparent when it comes to the pay. It's always the golden medium that we're looking for. However, I think when it comes to job description, for me, it's a must.
Okay, and let's say that, for example, on this job offer, there's actually no salary range, and then on the recruitment job interview, the recruiter is asking a question. So, what is your expected salary?
Mm-hmm.
I get this question a lot already, and I never know what is the perfect answer, because from one side, I don't want to be too low, so for sure, it's a perfect offer, thank you very much. But on the other side, don't want to highball, so they'll think that I have so artificial expectations. From my experience, what I did is, for example, go on the biggest this aggregators like Glassdoor, and I don't know, scroll through 10 LinkedIn offers and just see what's the average. Maybe talk a little bit of ChatGPT, but maybe there are other tips that how I should answer that. Once I remember, I bounced back the question and I said, "Oh, could you tell me what is your maximum bracket for this offer?"
What did they say?
That actually for now they can't say because like they are still discussing with the team. They don't know what would be official budget, so they would like to hear my answer first.
Okay. When I negotiate the salary, whether I'm the person that represents the company or for myself, I always want the other person to go first because it gives you some advantage. And of course, when you are actually being interviewed, sometimes it's not possible because you're going to do what you did, which is a great move, but they would be like, oh, we can't tell at the time.
So then I'm giving the range.
Yes, a range is a good option. However, again, you can give a little bit too low or too high for the range. Or usually, if you give the range, they would usually go for the lower end of the scale. Not always, but you know, sometimes they would go with it. It depends. If you really want to get the job, sometimes it's better to go a little bit lower than you expect. However, even if you really want this job very badly, I wouldn't go below what you really want just to get the job. Let's say you can tell that. Let's say, to give some number, I would like to get 3,000 euros a month, but I am open to negotiation because for me the primary thing that I'm looking for when it comes to job is like growth, development. So I'm happy to discuss it. I'm open to negotiation. However, this is what I'm currently having. I wouldn't like to go, let's say, below that. Or sometimes you go to a job interview when you're like, I don't know, I'm not that excited about it, so maybe I'm gonna shoot it and say something much more than I expect, and then you're actually gonna get it. So there's not one good tip that I would give. However, what you did was really good. I think another thing is also understanding your market value and documenting all your accomplishments. So if you actually want to set your mind onto certain salary level, you may come like, for example, you may come and be like, you know, with this set of skills. So for example, the fact that I can do this, and that, and I can do actually job of, you're not going to say it, but you know, job of few people. I would actually like to have something like something in between this and that. Basically, just be frank about your desired salary. Don't go too crazy, but also define the best way for you to negotiate. Be open to negotiation. Be open to rejection. But I think it's good to start with that.
Okay, thank you. Now I wanted to change a little bit the area that we'll talk about. I think it's still closely related to HR, personality tests. I've done a lot of personality tests at the end of last year because like I found about them. So I did like Gallup, Ray Dalio's 16 personalities, DISC, and this kind of stuff. And do you recommend actually all the people doing personality tests, like what they can find in them, and maybe if you could also elaborate, because I've heard that there are some slightly worse personalities, and there are some that are like actually backed by science and psychology. So what's your state on that?
Okay, I'm actually really curious. What were your top 5 Gallup traits? If you wanna share?
Yeah, I can share, no problem. I have written them also in my Notion. How they're not visible what I have here on my computer. But Gallup.
I actually did mine, and it's funny because my 5 top traits are very similar to other HR business partners that I've seen, and that was very interesting for me because when I did it, it was back when I was working. I was actually in between Vinted and Bolt, so before I started working in HR, but mine are very HR related.
Okay. So you are ready?
Yeah, tell me.
I did a full test, so I will say the first 10. So first one is learner, second is competition, third one is achiever, fourth one focus, then individualization, then 6 one significance, 7 activator, 8 responsibility, 9 command, and 10 self-assurance. So in general, I'm very focused on influencing, executing, and I have like 1 from strategic thinking on the first place learner, and just 1 from relationship building on 5th place individualization.
Okay, and you work as founders associate, right?
Yes, right.
Okay, that makes total sense. And you wanna like go into more like still an operational role, right?
Yeah, I think so, operational, but to be honest, I'm open to just any interesting job opportunities. Right now, I want to focus more on like the nice company and on the nice team. But probably founders associate, or either I was thinking of like some marketing, growth marketing.
Okay, but again, more of a generalist role.
Yeah. I'm feeling that for like my few years that I'm working in different projects, company scenarios, and I'm still feeling that I don't fit anywhere, that I don't still have any like path that I want to be the sales guy, I need to work in sales, or just the product, like I like to do a lot of different things, so for now I think this operations is a good fit.
I think it's because of the learners trait, because learners tend to get bored really easily, and for them they need to have a very dynamic environment and a position that allows them to wear many hats, because like they need to constantly learn something, and once they learn something they tend to strive to look for something else. So for you I don't think you're gonna like maintenance as much as you would like, finding new things, looking for solutions. I'm not like a I'm not like a professional certified Gallup coach, but sometimes I use it at work. But going back to your question, I personally am a strong advisor when it comes a strong advocate when it comes to all the personality tests. And of course, people would say there are better and worse tests. But the truth about them is that no test would tell you what type of person you are. We are much more complicated human beings, and there's not one big test that will tell us everything about ourselves. No. So for me personally, what I do when it comes to working with our employees, or when I do job coaching, like outside of my current work, I tend to work with at least few personality tests, and then I also try to ask some follow-up questions, and then I try to find some common ground, some common themes, and you would be surprised. But sometimes I do it with people that work in the same position and have similar results. And then, for example, one or two tests, they have the same results. But then I do the third and fourth one, let's say, with them. And it's something very, very different, because one test focus more on, let's say, like Gallup focus more on your on the things that you actually have like from very early age. But there are certain tests, like for example, 16 personalities can change within your lifetime. It's possible. Or for example, predictive index, another test that I'm doing. Again, it says something. It tends to teach you about different things about yourself. And for me, personally, and for all the people that I work with, this knowledge is very valuable, but you need to understand that this is only some sort of tool. Yeah, it gives you some sort of understanding what are your strong sides, and if you see some common schemes, if you see some common words or themes going on, then it may tell you something about yourself, but you also need to reflect about yourself. And the problem with this test is that we tend to, it's not like they can accurately measure who we are. They measure who we tell them we are. And sometimes we want to, be seen in a better light. Or sometimes we're not that self-aware. So these tests tend to
They're biased.
Yeah, they can be a little bit biased. I have like some sociological terms, but in Polish for that. But yeah, biased is the closest one. It's, I don't know. I think the word may be descriptivity.
You can say in Polish, and I'll do the translation below.
Descriptywność. That's the one. But yeah, is it the one? I don't know. Maybe we're gonna cut it.
Maybe they will tell us in the comments.
Yeah, but basically, we tend to describe ourselves as we see ourselves or as we want to be seen, but it's not always the reality, and that's why these tests are not always valid.
Regarding the personality tests and like finding out about your skills and characteristic, I also heard in one podcast, I think it was in Przemek Górczy's podcast, that like if you want to find out, for example, your strengths, you should, for example, write some email to, for example, 15 people that you are super close with. It can be like people from your family, your coworkers, like your managers, and write them like what they think you were the best of, and to give some examples in these situations. And then when you get all of these 15 emails, you actually have also like the overview that you are not biased because maybe how you are thinking that you are, but how actually people from outside are really judging you.
Oh, it's actually a great tool, and I actually pretty recently started using it at the job coaching sessions. Because this is how we can overcome like what I said, this bias. That's one way of doing that. Because, but also again, as any tool for looking within ourselves, this tells us how other people see us. Sometimes how other people perceive us is one thing and who we truly are is another. So again, if we take on one hand some personality tests, on the other hand we take how people view us, then we can have more comprehensive image of ourselves. This is, for example, when people get diagnosed for ADHD. There's DIVA, which is more, this is one test, and there's MOXA, and it's great to do two of them because one of them is actually the self-reporting test, and the other one actually, if I understand correctly, you need to have some input from your family and friends. So I just like in anything with life, if you want to get to know more about yourself, whether in professional or just in general when it comes to your self-development, it's good to learn from different tools, learn from different sources, and then maybe look for some common schemes that are going. Or someone can also come for a job coaching.
Okay. Exactly, job coaching. I think you've said it a few times. Maybe you want to elaborate a little bit on that. You started some job coaching. Yes? No?
It's not like a full-time. It's not like a full-time job. It's actually
side hustle.
It's like a side hustle, but like a very little one because just people started reaching out to me to help them with their resumes, to help them with their English, like to check their English, or to help with their resumes. Or people would be coming to me and they would be like, "Hey Vero, can you help me because I'm like stuck. I don't know what to do with my career." And because I was always very passionate when it comes to careers, I was always very passionate when it comes to learning about what people are good at, what people like doing. So I just started doing that, like a little bit as a side hustle. I am currently studying human resources management, so I also have the tools that I learned at university, but also I've experience of studying psychology, which another gave me some tools. I haven't finished the psychology, however, I've taken everything that I could from it. So I do not have a certain, let's say, coaching certificate at the moment, and for that reason I do not do it like full time, because of course people do it because they have experience, they've been working in HR, and also I am currently in university for human resource management, so technically I could do it, but right now it's just word of mouth. Someone liked it, someone recommended it to a friend, so I started doing it every now and then, and it gives me a lot of joy. Maybe something I would do in the future, but for now.
You have some place, like a website or like some email list or something where people can approach you, or they should just straight approach you on LinkedIn and ask, and then you will schedule.
It just straight on LinkedIn. Right now, as I said, it's not like I plan to do it. I actually don't have that much time for it. Of course, if anyone reaches out to me, I would be more than happy to do so. I do it like a few people every month. But right now I don't have any website. It's just I helped some people, and then if someone came to them asking for such advice, they would be like, you know what, I know someone, and then they will come and talk to me. So this is how it started, and for now I just do it for fun. We'll see where it's going to take me. I really like working within the organization, but also the ability to impact individuals' life is very It's very nice.
So you also have in the Gallup test individualization.
Yeah, I do. It's in my top 5.
So what is your top 5?
Oh, I don't remember. I've done it quite a while ago. I know that empathy and individualization is one. Maybe communication, something like that also. But I do not remember. I may check after the podcast because now it will take me too long. But empathy is my number 1, and I remember right when I saw it, I was like, empathy? Me? Like what? I talk a lot, but I also tend to get a compliment that I really value in my heart, that I'm a great listener, because I am very into the story. I'm very into what someone is telling me. But I always thought that no, empathetic people are like, the greatest people, the good people. They cannot do any harm. And I am sure that I am capable in my private life, let's say, to do some harm. However, if you actually have this Gallup results, I actually started to read into it, and empathy is understood as the ability to understand and leave people's emotion, but also it helps you to understand people's weak spots, people's fears, people, like all the things, the negative and the positive. And if someone's apathetic, it doesn't necessarily mean that they will always make good choices. It means that it will allow you to understand what people are going through. However, at certain moment you may not care and you may use it against them. So that was a very interesting thing for me to learn, and I think that empathy is such an amazing skill ever since. And if someone would ask me, I would say this is my number 1 skill, and also for any HR professional, I think it's very helpful.
Okay, I think we will wrap up. If you could give me a 1-sentence summary of this whole podcast episode, what would it be?
Okay, let me think. Okay, there's the saying that people like to say that HR is not your friend. So technically, we're not your enemy either, don't worry. But to match it with what we were talking about, HR is not your administrative officer. We are predominantly your strategic partner. And I hope that by listening to that, people will get a little bit more awareness of what HR actually does nowadays.
And where people could find you, approach you?
Yeah, it's basically LinkedIn. So my name is Weronika. My surname is Cekała. You can find me on LinkedIn. It's pretty easy to find me.
Yeah, we will also link it in the description.
Yeah, and feel free to reach out and ask any questions regarding HR or working as an HR professional in startups.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.
Wow.